Hi, everybody out there. Just so you know, this is a live lunch and learn, a business and marketing strategy session that we are doing. We do for our level 2 students. And if you're watching, feel free to join in the conversation, leave a comment, and we will do our best to answer your questions, both in the Zoom chat that we're in right now and also in the chats of the various places we're streaming this lunch and learn. So also, before we begin, what I want to say is please join in the conversation. Feel free to just unmute and share your perspective or ask questions. We will do our best to get to everybody's questions. Also, we don't know everything. So if you have feedback and input and experience in some of these spaces, please share it with us. We want to hear from your perspectives as well. So if you don't know me and Anthony, we'll introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Brooke. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at CLCI. I also come from a very, very heavy marketing, entertainment, and content creation background, essentially. So lots of marketing too, though, in almost every aspect there possibly is. So if you have questions with regard to marketing and business strategy, I'm here to help. And Anthony is also quite adept and experienced in these spaces as well. Anthony, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony. I am the project director for Certified Life Coach Institute, and that means I wear a lot of hats, but I do a lot of the background stuff for the business that you guys don't see. I also have worked with Brooke in terms of marketing as well, website building, and I specialize in copywriting and copy editing. So if you guys got those questions, I'd love to answer them. But we can help you with a wide variety of topics. And I think we should get started. So who would like to go first?
I see Barbara, Jade, Laura, Yolanda, and Narita. Did I say it? Or is it Narita? Or So if any of you want to unmute and ask a question, please do.
Oh, we got a first hand.
I heard copywriting, and that's actually something that came to my mind when we were going through the class, because a lot of those concepts I can imagine is very useful to others. But where does the copywriting really come into play as far as, we're going to go through this journey and we're going to learn a lot, and all of those concepts we learn from somebody else's book or anything like that. High level, can you touch on where does the copywriting and the legal aspect of things needs to come into the picture, depending on whether we're just writing an article or a book or anything like that?
Yeah, so strictly speaking, like if we're talking like big umbrella picture, copywriting is only necessary when it's necessary. And what I mean by that is you could have your whole coaching career just by word of mouth and meeting with people and collecting the payments, and copywriting would not be needed at all in that process. But that being said, people want a website, they want to write books or write, workbooks or do things like that, of that nature, write blogs too.
Yeah, books, also posts, your posts, anything you post in social media. That should be something that's thought through and done with a call to action. And so you want your copywriting to be consistent. So it can really step in as early as even when you're making a business card. Let's say you want to put a tagline on there. That's a bit of copywriting, and it's something that you very deliberately want to think of and put together and do so in a way that really speaks to whomever your client is. And so I would say it's very critical, except in those spaces where you're talking, Anthony, where if you're just out there doing word of mouth. But even if you're doing in-person talks and speeches, typically you have submitted some form of writing to get there, whether it be a speaker one sheet or so it is something that is very critical, especially in the space of marketing and business, I would say.
Yeah. And so with copywriting as well.
And then sorry, one other element too is in SEO, search engine optimization. There's a science to how you do the copywriting in that space, so that Google rates your website on a higher level. So that's even another space that copywriting comes in.
Yeah, and so when I said earlier, it's necessary only when it's necessary, that means you got to figure out what is the absolute necessities, because a lot of people want to do everything. They want to right for everything. They want to have their fingers in all the pies, but that's not really the best approach sometimes. Narrowing your focus, slimming it down, not writing a whole lot, but making sure what you do write is valuable is essential. And on top of that, getting another pair of eyes on your writing, whatever it is you write for, let's say for a website, for example. When any author writes, but let's just say as a business owner, when we write, we sort of write with the blinders on. We kind of know the context of what we're writing. We kind of know what we want to get across, but we're not looking at it from an objective point of view. So anytime I've ever written, I've always had Brooke look it over, or other people look it over, so they can give me feedback on what is actually being addressed or talked about, because otherwise you'll get a situation where you are writing for yourself and you're not really writing for your client or your ideal reader or viewer. And so that's one of the key points, is always putting the audience first. You're trying to keep in mind, what is it they need to know, and how can I do that with the most brevity, I would say, so you're not being extraneous with anything you're writing. Marcel, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, just a follow-up. So I hear copywriting and I hear two sides, right? Me copywriting my work and me making sure I'm not infringing on someone else's copyright.
Okay, so we're talking, there's two different kinds of copywriting. So, so copyright, the other kind of copywriting where I have created something and I want to copyright it, is a different
That's one.
thing. So, and then the other one is when you're actually writing copy, which is anything that is writing. But they both work very much in tandem with one another.
I didn't even think about that. I probably should have clarified.
The great thing, though, is there's a bill that was passed. It's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And the moment that you create something original and you post it on website, even social media, and it's yours, you own it and you just copyright it. By virtue of you putting it on the internet, it is innately copyrighted through the DMCA. And you can actually, if somebody is stealing your stuff without, having to spend money, issue takedown orders through DMCA takedown orders and request that people remove their material if you created it first and it is authentically and truly yours. So that's kind of amazing, because you don't have to go through this formal copywriting process anymore. You can put it up on the internet, know that it's being shared in a public space, but it also, in doing that, you have created a form of copywriting and ownership that you wouldn't have if you had not put it up on the internet. Pretty cool. And if you look into the DMCA, it's a neat act. So it's a Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I'll put that in DMCA. Mm-hmm. Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
As well, speaking of copyright and I guess copywriting, when they come together for like blogs and articles or other things of that nature, always cite where you're getting your information or your sources. It's always nice. It's good for backlinks too. If you link to whatever it is you're talking about, and this is like an authoritative source of information or an authoritative website, link to them. Who knows, they might end up linking back to you if you're an authoritative, if your blog is doing well or your website's doing well, and it's good for SEO. And as well, Barbara asked, so is copywriting a formal process, filing, etc.? Can be. I've had to write some legal documentation before, and I've used, is it Rocket Lawyer, Brooke? Is that the website?
I've used both Rocket Lawyer. I've also used, we have an amazing trademark lawyer that we have as well. And then we also have used, the other one is LegalZoom, but they all work very well.
Yeah.
So
I've used those templates to help with my copywriting, just because I'm not super technically literate when it comes to the law stuff. So I'll use the templates that are from those websites as a guideline and then fit them to our purposes as well.
I will say, well, the one area that is critical for you to get, my best advice in this space is if you have, it's hard to trademark just a name. So trademarking, but if you have a logo, that's probably something you'd want to trademark and have that this is mine, nobody else can use it. So ownership, and you can do that through LegalZoom, through Rocket Lawyer. It usually costs a few $100s. Is it 100% necessary? No, but trademarking typically involves an image. If you want to trademark words, which we actually have done here at CLCI, it takes a little bit more work and will probably cost a little more money because it's harder to do that. So.
And then to quickly address the question in the chat, do we need to cite if it's considered an authoritative site? Not necessarily.
Okay,
I would say
no, I would say not necessarily.
Yes, but to expand on that a little bit, you need to cite the information if the information is not from your own research or doing. Like if I said I went to the store yesterday, I don't need to cite anything for that. But if I'm getting statistics on rates of divorce or the rates of how coaching improves people's lives in X populations, I'm not coming up with that information myself. I'm getting that from somewhere. It's always best to cite it. Or if you're using some other blog to help, write and support what you're saying, just cite it. It's always better that way, and it's easy too.
It's also beneficial because with SEO, when you link out to somebody, you are linking to a site that maybe has a higher following. If they link back to you, Google will immediately validate your site and it brings you up that Google chain, getting the backlinks from one another. But linking out at a minimum is it's good business, and it also is I guess it's a good way to even subconsciously relate you to sources that maybe you look up to and things of that nature. So
and it makes you look trustworthy too. It makes it look like you're not pulling everything out of a hat. Knowing that you're doing a little bit of research too. Laura, you've had your hand up for a little while.
Oh, the blood is rushing down my arm now. So along that vein, in terms of copyrights or even sources where you're getting your information, there's a lot of models out there that, for example, setting SMART goals. There's a lot of different places that teach SMART goals, and even the letters mean something different depending on who it is that's teaching it, or even quotes. For example, I'm a quote junkie. If I want to put a quote out there and the internet tells me, which is obviously 100% correct, that the quote was by one person, but it ends up being by somebody. I mean, how do you know, A, where to verify the information? And if it's something like a SMART goal, that's a system that's been around for decades that other people are still talking about as an approach, is that something you have to, drill down to find out the original source from?
Not necessarily, because that's kind of getting in the area of like general knowledge. Even though I guess the general population doesn't know SMART goals. The people in like the self-help community kind of know what it is. As long as you're not saying that you invented the SMART goals, it's just a tool that you use. I wouldn't ever think twice that that's a problem.
So you could say, here's a model that is used by many different organizations. It's
more. Oh, go on, Brooke.
I think you can go more generic with it. I personally do like to give an origin. This is where it was originally created by this person, but it's been redone by so and so, or it's been redone, just blanketed several times. But I do tend to like to give the origin source because I think it automatically, even on a subconscious level, validates what it is that you're sharing, or allows people to go sort of explore where that came from, which will create more trust. I just find it's a good practice. The more that you are able to cite and source your information, the more people will trust your content. That being said, though, that doesn't mean that you can't cite the original source and then remake it as your own, which a ton of people do, right? That's why it's been redone so many times. So you can say this is the origin, but what we're doing here is a revision of it, essentially. So
got it. And then as far as the quotes, if I don't know or it's conflicting information who the quote is from, is it okay to do -unknown?
Yeah.
You can. There's a really great source for this. It's called quoteinvestigator.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look up, they will give you like the origin story of every quote and it's a ton of research and finite detail that they have gone into with regard to quotes. But it's absolutely okay to write unknown. But I would always do the work of just trying to look up and using something like Quote Investigator to see who originally said
No one's really going to come after, even if you like. I can't imagine a scenario where I would misuse a quote.
You can't.
Other than like deliberately falsifying a quote against somebody who's like alive. Like if I said Brooke Adair Walters said,
Even still though, you can't, unless they've gone out and actually copyrighted those things, you can reappropriate somebody else's quote. Not that I would recommend it necessarily, because I think we should be coming up with our own quotes or our own versions of it.
Authentic, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
all.
Thank
it's
you.
good to think about it as less of, not less, but it's partly giving credit to whoever, created something, and also not taking credit for things that aren't yours. Which I tend to fall on that side of thing, is not taking credit for things that I didn't make myself. And then you'll pretty much be fine.
Yeah.
Yolanda, you got your
Wait,
hand raised.
I want to credit the source. If we
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you guys, first of all, for taking time to spend with us today. I have a question about business operations. Starting off, I don't know if maybe I'm doing too much, but I am working on standard operation procedures for my business. And one of the things that I was thinking through as I'm building out, the process map is, I don't know if there are best practices in the industry, or if you guys have any information that you can share with us with regards to case information. So how are cases documented? Are there privacy laws that we need to be made aware of? And are there retention laws or strategies related to how long we keep records or documentation of our, clients' information?
So we are, as coaches, because we're not regulated by the US government at this point in time, there is not any kind of legislation that says you must hold anything for a certain and given amount of time. Mind you, though, a lot of coaches follow the rule of what therapists and what the psychiatrists and what other folks in the mental health fields, what their standards are. And a lot of times they model their structure by those standards.
Okay.
That being said, remember too, when you came into this class, we all signed an ethics, right? And within the ethics, we speak about privacy and maintaining privacy and confidentiality to the best of our ability. We can never promise 100% confidentiality, which is interesting, but we do our best to maintain and create that safe space. And that is within the ethics you signed here. And it also should be contained within the contracts you have with your clients, which is really what my next point would be whatever you choose. So if you choose to hold on to documents for 3 years, if you choose to store them in a drive on a cloud or at home or in any way, right? There is very clear laws when it comes to payment information, but when it comes to case stuff, for us, I would just be very clear with your client in the contract how it is that you're doing and what it is that you're doing. And also remember that it's always to the best of your ability, and you cannot always guarantee 100% confidentiality. So, yeah.
Okay, and that also needs to be clearly outlined and highlighted on the webpage, right? If you have a website.
I think that's a good policy always, is to have your policies very in a place that people can see them. You do have a privacy policy. You're required to have one on a website. Every website needs one by law. We tend to also like to do a terms of what is it? Terms of service.
And conditions.
Yeah, terms and conditions. We also have a sort of guidelines to what we expect from the people who are our users and who are you guys had your student packet. We lay out very clearly what our expectations of people who are using both our websites and our tools and attending our classes. And so we do that in a public way, and it should be shared in a public way. Cookies are also another thing that when it comes to website, you have to have a cookie pop up essentially. All of that can be done very easily through we use Termly. I love Termly. They're reasonably priced, and they will.
I stumbled upon them. Yeah. I thank you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I interrupted you, but I didn't know the legitimacy of that because it's free.
they'll give you one for free, but then they'll always sort of want so for the second piece, they're going to ask you to pay for it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and we pay for our termly, but it's a reasonable cost, and it's a reasonable cost to stay compliant and legal. And the great thing is, I like it because it's their job to stay on top of the laws, and then we just go in and check in every so often and make sure that way we're always in code, because we're not lawyers, and I don't want to have to go in and like figure it out every time. With a service like Termly, they handle it all for me. So I just know that I'm up to date using them, and as long as I'm going in and checking in.
Okay. And a second part to my question is, I don't know if it's standard in the industry, but I'm looking at potentially using some type of system to document, case notes for my clients and hold them. And I didn't know if you guys knew or could recommend, an organization that I can start to do research to implement the case system.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
for my clients, I use OneNote. That way everything is stored on my computer, part of the Office suite. So it does cost something. It's been a while since I paid for it, but that's what I use because it keeps all my folders and notes organized, and it's all on my computer. It's not stored on a cloud somewhere. I trust, cloud-based systems, but I like everything just on my computer in terms of security goes. Makes things really easy. If this goes for more like if you're in a big enterprise setting and you've got a lot of clients, and there's, some people who are using coaching, not as a business, but they're incorporating in their existing business, you're looking for something like a database system rather than, spreadsheets or Excel or Google Sheets. They work, but spreadsheets aren't databases sometimes, and you need to have like a client profile with all this information history on it. You're looking at databases, which I'm not too familiar with right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to say I'm not too fond of databases.
Yeah, there are services out there that do provide that. There are a few of them. You have to pay for all of them. Honestly, in all of my stuff, I have always used Google Drive, and I have created private folders. There are in my consultancy, my clients had access to those folders, but I always made sure that it was me sharing them, so I could always maintain either if I had to. I would close off the folders or, decide who had access to them and who didn't. And that was always enough for me, honestly. For others, it may not be. Happy birthday, Laura, by the way. And hi to Mike, who's watching as well. So, but that was enough for me. But I was doing some research for us, and I stumbled across some places that do that. How much they would cost, and if it's absolutely necessary. I couldn't tell you. I know that Lisa, our owner, she does her best to take as few notes as humanly possible, and she actually does not retain or keep her notes because she wants as little record as humanly possible of what is happening with her in her sessions with her clients. So I know other folks are different though.
Yeah, I was struggling with that. I know, in talking with some people record all their, their sessions so that if there is any liability that, incurs as a result, that's their record.
Not only that, it's also an added value. You can give your clients access to the recorded sessions and they can go back and rewatch them, which is an added value for clients. And there are coaches that absolutely do that a lot. I did it. I still do it. I will absolutely give access to my recorded sessions to my clients so that they can go back and rewatch, use them however they wish. And that's an added value. It truly is. So.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And also in every contract too, and in the one we provide, I don't remember. I used to know what number it was. There is a notice of we are recording, this session, and they may be shared. And you just want to make sure that you get written. What word am I looking for? Written permission, essentially, to use those sessions or share those in any way. Yeah.
That who has ownership of those recordings. We have our staff student coaching.
And thank you, Laura.
The recordings, even though all of our clients agreed to be recorded and it's going to be shared with either our mentor coaches or the ICF once they do our reviews. That's not the property of the client though. They waive that right and they don't have access to the recording, and that's only internal. So that is included in the contract of who has ownership of those recordings as well.
And how they, and also how they may be used.
Yeah.
Again, the great thing is after level 1, you guys were all provided with sample contracts, and all of this is in those sample contracts. And you guys can always go through and flex, change wording where it fits you right and for what it is that you're doing. So just always have, a legal somebody look over it.
Yeah, thank you.
Barbara, you got your hand raised. And you're muted.
I do. So, Anthony and Brooke, if you don't mind, dialing back to when you were in, I'm going to say my chair, I won't speak for all of us. The first next steps, like reflectively, if you could think of and offer us, what if I had to do it over again, I would have done that. As far as taking steps to building a viable coaching business, because there's so much out here. I mean, somehow, I don't know, when I signed up, it seemed like a signal went out to somebody and I am being inundated with invitations to this and use this and use our program for that. So what do you recommend, generally speaking? I know it's not binding, as far as those of us who really have an eye towards launching a coaching business and not getting so caught up in the weeds and investing so many coins, and then 6 months from now wondering, WTF.
So I had this conversation with my uncle's fiance who will be taking the class eventually in the future. We had that conversation, but I told her before, I wish I could have this conversation with everybody too. Before you start taking the classes with us, think about your niche.
Yeah.
Who are you actually going to be serving, and who will be paying for your services? That's one of the most important things, I think, in my mind, if I had to take off my coaching hat.
That is true step 1. That is true step 1. Figure out who you are selling your services to and what job it is you are helping them do.
Yeah.
So what is it that you are helping them in their lives to attain, to complete, to get something that they can see the tangible benefits from working with you, and just really knowing who that client is, and then once you know who the client is, what the problem is, and how you're coming in to serve them and help them, because that's ultimately what you guys are doing. That in itself will tell you where to find them, how to market to them, what to say to them, what they need. So what you can offer them, how you can help them in their day. By knowing the needs and wants and desires of that client, you are able to then serve them in such a way that is tailored uniquely to them, that there will be no competition, because you are speaking their language.
Yes.
And nobody else is.
And to add to that, whatever it is you're offering, is it worth paying for? I see a lot of coaches too who will, let's just say their taglines, for example, or whatever their elevator pitch is. I'm a coach who offers wellness and health and happiness, and you'll find your meaning for your life if you coach with me. That's not something I would be willing to pay for, because it's so general and it doesn't really help what it is. On the other hand, if I had a coach who's like, I'm a running coach and I will get you from being on the couch to running a marathon within a year, and if that's your goal, that might be something that people are willing to pay for, because it has a very clear outcome that's being achieved. Now, that might be less coaching and more of fitness trainer kind of thing. But what the example stands is there's a clear outcome that is being paid for, and all the other fun stuff can happen afterwards, like fulfillment and happiness. And
that's going to come, right? But when we say fulfillment, when we say happiness, those are kind of out there concepts. It's hard for me to wrap my head around what fulfillment and actually is. I know what happiness is. Okay. Okay. Then I have to sit. What did that feel like? What is that? But figuring out how that tangibly shows up in their lives. So if you want to have energy every morning before you go to work and also get to here in life, get to a specific place, if it's get that promotion you've always wanted, open that business you've always wanted, pursue your specific dream. I mean, that's why knowing the job to be done, essentially, what is it your client wants and needs? What job are they hiring you to do? And that often gets very, very lost in the mix when we get into these very general terms. The more specific you get, the better, because people are looking for specific things. If it's that, if I am turning 50 and my kids are out of the house, they're grown up, and now here I am sitting and I don't know what I'm going to do next with my life, and I don't even know where to start, and I'm scared. And you can start to think, okay, well, I'm talking to a woman. She's got kids. The kids are all grown up. Now she's got this extra time. She doesn't know what to do with it, but she knows she wants to have a purpose in her life. And she knows she wants to get somewhere and do something. Maybe that's what that is. And so then you start to speak into the spaces of starting the next chapter, doing it successfully, achieving certain goals, and speaking to her and her needs and what she wants. And that's where you start to get to those tangible benefits. And when you speak into those tangible benefit spaces, people will start to buy what you're selling. Also, a big part of this is, remember, you're giving things for free in this space. So you're going to be, if we're speaking to this woman, she's turning 50 kids. What does she need that I can give her right now as a coach and put out there as marketing? Well, maybe she needs a list of the next steps, the things, these sort of things. This is the places we're going to have to go. Maybe she needs a way to fill her time every day. And so you're providing her with blogs that are informing her of her next step and how to do it. But you're essentially wanting to solve problems within your marketing. Not something we do as coaches, but it's something we do in marketing for sure. Is we are offering tools and things to help our clients become problem aware, and then also build the trust for them to think that you're the one that can help them solve their problems.
Mm-hmm. And to add to that as well, this is like step one, part A, or part B, actually, is whatever population you're serving with your coaching, is it going to be a sustainable business? If, I don't know, I was coaching. Now,
before you go there really quick, you can, no matter where everybody is, there is a way to make it a sustainable business. It's just, how are you going to make this a sustainable business? Not necessarily is it, but how? Because if we're serving folks who cannot pay, then we're going to go a different route. We'll probably go a 501(c) route than if we're going to be serving somebody who has the means to pay, if that makes sense, right? So how am I going to make this a viable business?
So like, for example, if my initial business idea was, I'm going to coach young adults, like 18, 19-year-olds, and we're going to have one-on-one sessions that are an hour long, that are $300 a session, that might not be the most viable business option, because they don't have a lot of expendable income or the time to have those sessions. So if I'm dedicated to serving 18, 19-year-olds, whatever stage of their life they are, how can I serve them and still meet my needs of eating, putting a roof over my head, keeping the business sustainable and even profitable? Thinking of those things as your first step is laying the foundations for everything else going forward. There's a lot of talking we did, Barbara. Is that any of that?
And I know it's not like a direct path. Like, this is what you do. You're going to build a website. You're going to start on Facebook. But if you ask yourself, okay, once I know my client, well, what do they need to trust me? And if that is for folks that are maybe getting their clients where it's face-to-face and word of mouth, that might be a business card. And that might be them showing up to meetings and talking to these women, PTA meetings or something like that. For somebody who's pulling people from people who are Google searching, then you're going to need a website, and you probably want to run a Google ad or something along those lines. if it's people who are, if you're finding people and they're on social all day and that's where they're going to. So once you know your client, you know where to start and you know what to build because you're building for them. And remember, what you're building is the simplest way for them to access your services. So what is the simplest way for you to serve your client and for your client to be able to pay you and accept your services, whatever that may be? And it may vary person to person, but the true first step is figuring out who that client is.
So the true first step then is to identify who our ideal client is. Level 1 said avatar, and then look at entity.
And then figure out, okay, what do they need to hire me? So if this client, do they need a website? Do they need me to be on Facebook? Do they need, where is that client going to find you? Most likely to find you, access your information and access your services. Where are you going to reach through the noise to grab them and go, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing. And where and how are you going to do that for that client? And it's different for every client.
And so I hear, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut across. I hear you just saying in that regard, as far as an entity, do we incorporate? Do DBA? Do we just spend?
That is going to, yeah, that'll vary based on state and location a great deal. Okay. Because I would not recommend for people in California to go out and open an LLC or anything because it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Whereas in tons of states, it's like $20, but here you're going to be paying $800 or more. So it really depends on state to state. The one thing you definitely do want to do is to create a name for yourself, do a doing business as, or at a minimum, get a DBA out there so that then you can start to have a business back end, something on the backside where you can collect money, collect it through your business and do things like that. And that's really what you have to do. Business license through your city, but you're just going to really have to check based on where you're at and where you're doing business, because that's really key. Where are you doing business and what are the needs for you to do business in that area?
And the CLCI, you, Anthony, others, do you all offer support in that regard in terms of the back office piece?
We're always here for you. We are always here for you. You can always reach out. Absolutely. We absolutely are. That's what the Slack channel is really, truly for, is so that you guys can drop in anytime. I have a question. I'm having trouble with this. Help us with this. We have every person on the staff is monitoring that and monitoring it. At times they probably shouldn't be, so that we can be there for you. And it's true. And honestly, even your fellow students will give you a lot of information in those spaces as well. So,
whatever, we will probably do our best to find the resources for you. We're not going to be offering business advice.
Right.
We're not going to be telling you what to do for obvious liability reasons. And I don't know everything, but I am pretty good at finding the stuff I need to know. That seems to be the story of my life as far as working here is I don't know, but I'll find out.
I have experience of you. Peace to both of you. Thank you very much.
Of course. Marcel, you've got your hand up and we've got about 10 minutes left or so. So we'll try to go through this and get everybody's questions. But Marcel, you got your hand up.
Just quickly, then, I'm having trouble with my value proposition. I can't remember what we called it in class, but when you identify your niche and then this is what you offered. Brooke and Anthony, you touch a little bit about this. Do you have any advice as far as is there a rule of thumb of you're in a good spot as far as between too general and more specific? Because Brooke, to your point, my clients I oversee, there are different elevator speech. Thanks, Sarah. There are different needs individually, and I'm having a hard time just finding the middle ground so that I can grasp a wider, a wider.
Be more specific. I would say the more specific you are, the better.
Okay, great.
Honestly, because we think that when oh my God, we're being so specific. You're actually truly casting a wider net than you imagine you are. But by being the more specific you are, the more capable you are of making people believe you can solve the problem they have. So just be super duper specific, even if it feels uncomfortable. If your client is 1 in a million, there's over 7,000 of them out there. So
you.
It's also easier to dial it back than it is to.
It is, yeah.
So like if you go overboard, you can always just reel it back in a little bit until it's good.
I really can't imagine a space where it would be too specific now.
I coach people named Brooke Adair Walters.
Okay, well there you go. I don't think anybody's going to do that.
You see where I'm going. Like you can get silly with how specific you get, and it'll become obvious, like if it's a little bit ridiculous how specific, and you can just chop out those parts until it's like, okay, this fits, this gets the message across, this solves a problem that's specific to a certain group of people, but there's thousands of people who fit that description.
And if you're going to go towards a certain direction, go the way of being more specific over being more general, because the more general you are, the less you're talking to me. You're like, it's like, yeah.
Thank you both.
Liddell, you got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. When we went to break, I got a Rottweiler out there that need attention and grandchildren. So if you address this, I apologize. But so here's my thing. I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out how to price my packages. I pretty much got my niche down pat, my style, my coaching style, but just coming up with the money and feel comfortable with that, charging that. That's so where, if you can't help me, can you direct?
Oh, I can definitely direct you. I've got Brooke, you want to talk, but I'm gonna put the link right now to our pricing calculator blog. That's a literal like spreadsheets that you can use to like figure out your pricing per session. It is a general guideline. It's not like if you put in this, you should do this. It's just giving you a general idea of what you're looking at. And that takes into account, your living expenses, your cost of your business expenses, things like that, and how much profit you want to make at the end of the year.
Yeah, and remember,
I appreciate it.
There's several layers that go into this. Remember, you're not just charging for the hour of time you're with your client. That hour of time where you're getting paid needs to pay for the other hours that you're not working. So if I'm only seeing a client 2 hours a day, those 2 hours have to pay for my full 8-hour day. So that's when you start to figure out. It's not, you're not charging because, I can survive on $20 an hour, but then I got to work 12 hours a day. No, you're going to spend probably 6 hours doing business, marketing, working on your plan, putting all that stuff into place, maybe less depending, and then 2 hours with the client. Well, that 2 hours has to pay for my full day.
Man, I'm glad you said that. I never thought about that. Thank you very much for that. That was a nugget right there.
So I think that we're almost done. I think that we are, I just saw from Dan a little bit ago that we were almost there. So and that's the other thing. Just keep in mind that you're paying for a lot in a very short amount of time. And so don't be afraid to charge. Also, the other thing, don't be, if you have value, what you're offering has value. What's funny is some people are scared to go, if I charge this much, it's going to be, nobody's going to pay it. But the funny thing is there is somebody that will, there really is, but it's a matter of quantity, same thing. So the more you charge, probably the fewer clients you have, at least starting out until you build a solid base. But you're going to be doing less work, less time. So you're charging more. It's just going to be a little probably more work on the back end to start to get the ball rolling and everything. And also know what your client can afford to, who your ideal client is. But I've had clients who could not afford me that saved up to work with me. And that was one of the most complimentary things. And what we don't realize sometimes about not charging is we are doing a disservice to our clients and to what we are offering. Mind you, I do firmly believe in pro bono work. I do firmly believe, I'm speaking when we're to the paying client. So if you're going to do, 10 hours a week of paying, you can still do 4 hours of pro bono, but that 10 hours has to, again, pay for the time that you're doing your pro bono work so that you can still do that good pro bono, help people who can't afford your services space. The great also thing with regard to how to charge and what to charge and what to do. When you don't charge a client that may be able to pay even a small amount, you're losing a degree of accountability that is brought with money. When there is an exchange of money, now I have to be there and show up because it has to be important to me. And that's just, it's a subconscious thing. So you are creating that accountability by virtue of asking for your client to pay you even as little as $20. Because if I paid for that hour for that $20 or I haven't, the odds of me showing up, I'm going to show up so much more if I've spent some money there. And it's going to be important to me that it's successful and that time and that money is not wasted. And so that's important. Also, when it comes to marketing and tracking, we want to market and track to paying clients. So we want to offer things that they have to pay for so that we're able to track the people who are actually going to reach in their pocket and pay us money for our services. We don't want to track the folks that will never do that, because now we're building campaigns and marketing around people who are never going to pay us. Truthfully, we want to build those around the ones that will. So, yeah.
And final thing, Kyle, I don't know if you saw, but I don't have access to the class Slack channel. If you can post that link to the article into the channel, for everybody out there, it's the blog where I'm eating a calculator.
Were you literally crunching numbers?
Yes. I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys out there for watching. I'm just going to sign off of the live. I'll stay in the classroom. Thank you guys for participating, and